I never thought I'd be writing something like this. You read these stories on forums. You hear about them from a friend of a friend. You watch movies where the husband is the last to know, and you sit on your couch, shaking your head, thinking, how could he be so blind? How could anyone miss the signs? You convince yourself that you are observant. You convince yourself that the foundation of your life is built on solid rock. You believe that the people you have chosen to surround yourself with, the people you have trusted with your vulnerabilities, your secrets, your physical and emotional safety, are fundamentally good. But betrayal doesn't usually announce itself with alarms and flashing lights. It doesn't kick your front door down. True betrayal, the kind that breaks your mind, creeps in silently through the back door. It takes its shoes off so it doesn't make a sound on the floorboards. It sits in your living room, drinks your coffee, and smiles at you. My wife is 58 years old. My best friend is 61. I am in my late 50s as well. We are not impulsive teenagers. We are not young adults figuring out the complexities of relationships and boundaries. We are adults in the latter halves of our lives, a time when you are supposed to have settled into a rhythm of comfort and unwavering trust. By this age, the storms of youth are supposed to be behind you. You are supposed to be looking forward to retirement, to quiet evenings, to the peace of a life well lived alongside the people you cherish most. My best friend and I have known each other for years. We had the kind of friendship where you don't even need to speak to understand what the other is thinking. We weathered the inevitable storms of life together: career shifts, the loss of aging parents, financial stresses, and health scares. He was a pillar in my life. He was the man I would have called in the middle of the night if my car broke down or if I was in trouble. I trusted him implicitly. I looked at him and saw a brother. And my wife, we built an entire universe together. When you marry someone, you don't just share a house. You share a history. You weave your timelines together until you can't remember where your life ends and hers begins. You create inside jokes that no one else understands. You learn the exact way she takes her tea, the specific look in her eye when she's stressed, the way she laughs when she's genuinely happy. I trusted her completely. I believed with every fiber of my being that we were a team. It was us against the world. But I was wrong. It wasn't us against the world. It was them against me, and the battlefield was my own home. A few weeks ago, I walked into my own house. It was a completely unremarkable day. The kind of day you forget as soon as it's over. The weather was normal. My drive home was normal. I had no sense of impending doom. I had no knot in my stomach. I was just a husband coming back to the home he provided for his family, looking forward to taking off my shoes, sitting on the couch, and unwinding. I put my key in the lock. I turned it. The door clicked open. What I saw in the next few seconds is something that is now permanently burned into my retinas. It is a loop that plays in my head the moment I wake up, and the last thing I see before exhaustion finally drags me into a restless sleep. I caught them, my wife and my best friend, together in my home under my roof. I won't give you the graphic, humiliating details because those belong strictly to my own personal nightmares, but the context was undeniable. There was no misunderstanding. There was no, it's not what it looks like. It was exactly what it looked like. When you experience a trauma of that magnitude, your brain doesn't process it like a normal event. Time physically slows down. The ambient noise of the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside faded into a complete, deafening static. My vision tunneled. I felt a coldness start in my chest and spread instantly to my fingertips and toes. It was as if all the blood had suddenly been drained from my body. In that single, agonizing moment, the reality I had lived in for decades shattered like a sheet of glass. The man standing in my home wasn't my brother. He was an intruder, a predator wearing my best friend's face. The woman scrambling in front of me wasn't my life partner. She was a stranger. I don't remember everything I said. I remember the primal, guttural sound of my own voice, a voice I didn't recognize, demanding they get out. I remember the frantic scrambling, the stammering, the absolute terror in their eyes because the dark little fantasy they had been playing out had suddenly collided with reality. I remember my best friend, the man who gave a toast at my birthday, grabbing his things and fleeing my house like a thief in the night. Because that is exactly what he was, a thief. He didn't steal my television or my car. He stole my past, my present, and my future. If the story had ended there, a momentary lapse of judgment, a drunken mistake, a singular, catastrophic failure of morality, I would still be devastated. But perhaps, just perhaps, the human mind could find a way to compartmentalize a single event. But what hurts even more, what fundamentally destroys my soul, is what I learned after the initial explosion. When the dust settled, when the tears dried up enough for the interrogation to begin, the absolute, unvarnished truth was dragged out into the light. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. For years. I need you to really internalize that timeline. Think about what you were doing 4 years ago. Think about how much life happens in 1,460 days. When you discover a betrayal of that length, you undergo a horrific psychological phenomenon. You are forced to review your entire recent history. Your memories are no longer a source of comfort. They become a crime scene. You become a forensic investigator of your own life, digging up the past and examining it under the harsh, cold light of the truth. 4 years of lies. I look back at the photos we took. I look at the family dinners we hosted. We all sat at the same dining room table. I would pour wine for my best friend. I would serve him food that I paid for in a house that I maintained. We would talk about politics, sports, our careers. We would laugh. And while I was looking down at my plate, they were exchanging glances. They were communicating on a secret frequency right in front of my face. Think about the holidays, Christmas mornings, New Year's Eve parties. Think about my birthdays, my wife baking a cake, my best friend bringing a gift, both of them standing in my living room, singing happy birthday to me, telling me how much they love me, how much they appreciate me. They looked me dead in the eyes, smiled, and acted like nothing was happening. The level of cognitive dissonance required to pull that off is terrifying. It takes a specific kind of psychological discipline to look a man in the eyes, a man who loves and trusts you, and lie to him with every breath you take for 48 months. It means every "I love you," my wife said to me before turning off the bedside lamp was a calculated performance. It means every time my friend patted my back and called me a good man, he was actively mocking my ignorance. They weren't just having an affair, they were living a shadow life at my expense. I wasn't a husband or a friend to them anymore. I was an obstacle. I was the warden they had to sneak around. I was the punchline to a private joke they shared in the dark. I was a prop in the stage play of my own life. Now the secret is out. The adrenaline has faded, leaving behind a cold, desolate wasteland of a marriage. And now, predictably, come the apologies. My wife is a shell of the woman she was a month ago. She cries constantly. The house echoes with her sobbing. She tells me she loves me. She tells me that the affair was an addiction, a terrible, toxic escape that she didn't know how to stop. She swears she never wanted to hurt me, that she compartmentalized her life so deeply that she stopped seeing reality. She says she will do whatever it takes, therapy, absolute transparency, polygraphs, whatever I demand to save our marriage. She begs me not to throw away the decades we built together over a terrible mistake. My best friend sent me messages, long, agonizingly detailed paragraphs. He says he is profoundly ashamed. He says looking at himself in the mirror makes him sick. He says he betrayed his own moral code, that he lost his way, and that he will regret destroying our friendship until the day he dies. He knows he has no right to ask for forgiveness, but he asks for it anyway, hoping that someday, years from now, I might see him as a flawed human being rather than a monster. But here is the agonizing truth about apologies that follow a 4-year deception. They ring entirely hollow. An apology is meaningful when someone realizes they have done wrong and steps forward to confess. It shows a return of conscience, but they didn't confess. They didn't come to me, burdened by the heavy weight of their guilt, unable to live with the lie anymore. They only stopped because they were caught. If I hadn't come home early that day, if I had stayed at the office for one more hour, or taken a different route home, what would have happened? I know exactly what would have happened. They would have adjusted their clothes, smoothed out the wrinkles, and sat on the couch to greet me when I walked in. They would have asked me how my day was, and the affair would have entered its 5th year. Their tears now are not tears of remorse for what they did to me. They are tears of regret for being exposed. They are crying because the comfortable, dual-life ecosystem they built has been destroyed. They are mourning the loss of their reputation, the loss of their comfort, the loss of the man they relied on to be the steady, ignorant anchor of their lives. When you are plunged into a crisis this severe, you inevitably lean on the people around you. You seek counsel because your own internal compass is spinning wildly out of control. But bringing other people into the darkness only makes the room louder, not clearer. Some people in my life, family members, spiritual advisors, a few well-meaning mutual friends, are gently pushing me toward forgiveness. They tell me forgiveness is not for them. It is for you. They say that carrying this level of radioactive hatred and anger will act like a poison in my veins. It will age me. It will turn me into a bitter, cynical old man who can never trust anyone again. They argue that my wife is a flawed human being who made a terrible, extended error in judgment, but that people can change, that marriages can be rebuilt from the ashes, stronger than before. They tell me to look at the sum total of our lives together, not just the last 4 years. Then there is the other camp, the people who look at the situation with cold, uncompromising logic. They are furious on my behalf. They tell me that this level of betrayal is the ultimate deal breaker. They point to the timeline, 4 years. They remind me that an affair of that length requires thousands of micro decisions. Every single day, my wife woke up, looked at me, and decided to betray me. Every single day, my best friend made the conscious choice to stab me in the back. This camp tells me if you take her back, if you ever speak to him again, you are negotiating your own self-respect. You are telling them that there are no true consequences for completely destroying your soul. You are teaching them how to treat you. Listening to both sides feels like being torn apart by wild horses. Both sides make agonizingly valid points. I do not want to be consumed by hatred. I want to be a man of grace, but I also do not want to be a fool. I refuse to be a doormat for people who showed me such profound, calculated cruelty. This brings me to the core of my struggle. I spend hours pacing the floorboards of my home, a home that now feels like a haunted house, trying to untangle two concepts that society often lumps together, forgiveness and reconciliation. I am slowly realizing that they are not necessarily the same thing. Forgiveness is an internal process. It is the act of deciding that you will no longer let the actions of another person dictate your emotional state. It is opening your hands and letting the burning coal of resentment drop to the floor. Part of me desperately wants to find that forgiveness. I want to look at my wife and my former friend not as monsters, but as deeply broken, pathetic people who destroyed something beautiful for a cheap thrill. I want to let go of the anger because carrying it is exhausting. My chest constantly aches, my jaw is perpetually clenched, I want peace. But reconciliation requires two people. It requires trust to be rebuilt. And how do you rebuild a house when the people who burned it down are holding the blueprints? Another part of me, the core of my dignity, feels like I would be committing the ultimate act of self-betrayal if I ever allowed either of them to have a place in my life again. If I share a bed with my wife again, I will be lying awake staring at the ceiling, wondering where her mind is. If she goes to the grocery store, I will be checking my watch, wondering why it took her 20 minutes longer than usual. I will become a warden. I will become a paranoid, anxious shell of a man, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Is that a marriage? Is that a life worth living? At 58 years old, do I really want to spend the next decade of my life playing detective in my own home? But the alternative is equally terrifying. The alternative is walking away from the life I built. It means dividing assets, selling the house with the memories, standing in front of lawyers, and starting over from absolute scratch as I approach my 60s. It means facing the very real prospect of being alone. It means looking into the void of the future and realizing the path I had mapped out has completely vanished. They didn't just break my heart, they broke my compass. They broke my ability to trust my own judgment. If I could be so completely wrong about the two people closest to me in the world, how can I ever trust my instincts about anyone else ever again? How can I ever look a new friend or a new partner in the eye and believe they aren't capable of exactly the same thing? I am standing at a crossroads in the dead of night, and neither path has any light. I am paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. If I stay, do I condemn myself to a life of anxiety and disrespect? If I leave, do I throw away the possibility of redemption and condemn myself to loneliness based purely on pride? This is why I have recorded this. This is why I am putting my deepest, most humiliating pain out into the world, because I cannot trust my own mind right now. My perspective is too warped by grief. I need to know if anyone listening to this has ever stood where I am standing. Has anyone here ever experienced a betrayal of this magnitude? Not a drunken one-night stand, not a brief emotional fling, but a sustained, multi-year campaign of deception executed by the people you loved the most. If you have, I need you to speak to me. Were you able to find forgiveness? And if you did find it, did you use it to walk away in peace, or did you use it to stay and try to rebuild? If you chose to stay, looking back 5, 10 years later, did they actually change? Did the trust ever truly come back, or are you just surviving in a compromised state? And if you chose to leave, if you burned the bridge and walked out into the unknown, was it worth it? Did you find your self-respect on the other side? Did the loneliness eventually give way to peace, or do you regret not trying harder to save what was broken? I am not looking for empty platitudes. I am not looking for someone to tell me that time heals all wounds, because right now, time just feels like salt rubbing into an open gash. I am looking for raw, honest truth from people who have walked through this specific fire and come out on the other side. What was the right decision for you? Please drop into the comments below. Tell me your story. Tell me what you would do if you woke up tomorrow and realized the last 4 years of your life were a lie. Tell me how I am supposed to survive this. Because right now I don't know how I will.